Hello everyone and welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering, with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck techs that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well. And for today's deck tech, we have another Ninja Turtle spoiler for you with Super Shredder, a mono black EDH deck focused on sacrificing and making permanents leave the battlefield, because anytime a permanent is going to leave the battlefield, you're going to get to put a counter on Super Shredder, and he has Menace, so he's already got built-in evasion on him. If they have one creature, they're not going to be able to block Super Shredder, and you're going to win with commander damage, and we are going to make sure the board is clear because we are running a ton of cards that are going to force sacrifice and get additional value off of that as well. So very strong and competitive deck here. Current TCG market value is $249 to $301, and our land count is 34, with 17 of those being swamps and 17 of those being non-basics. So getting into the deck today, here are all of the cards that are going to force opponents to sacrifice a ton of stuff. So we are running a Soul Shatter, which forces all of them to get rid of their highest converted mana cost creature. That's going to be 3 triggers on Super Shredder when you cast this, so he's immediately going to get 3 counters for 1 spell. Mire and Misery, same thing, everybody's sacrificing a creature or enchantment. Smallpox is super good for 2 black mana, everybody's losing a life, discarding a card, sacking a creature, and then sacking a land, so you're going to get 2 triggers per player off of this for Shredder, so it's going to be 8 counters, so broken. Merciless Executioner, when he enters, everybody sacks a creature. Sheoldred's Edict is forcing opponents to sack a non-token creature or a token. Liliana's Triumph is forcing them all to sack a creature as well. Playcrafter and Fleshbag Marauder, when they enter, they force everybody to sack, so that's going to be 4 triggers off of a single creature cast. Ophiomancer is keeping your sack fodder up by making snakes every upkeep. And then Fane the Broker has a ton of abilities on him. You can sack a creature to put counters on another creature, probably Super Shredder. You can remove a counter from a creature you control to make a treasure, or you can sack an artifact to make a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. And for 4 mana, you can untap them to get additional value. And then even more sacrificing in the deck, so Demon's Disciple and Accursed Marauder is forcing everybody to sack a creature, and then Archfiend of Depravity says at the beginning of each opponent's end step they only get to keep 2 of their creatures and they have to sacrifice the rest. So depending on how big their army is, Super Shredder is going to get a ton of counters off of this guy being out. And then I thought it was really interesting because there are a ton of lands nowadays that either fetch basics or like destroy other lands, and each of these count as a permanent leaving the battlefield. So that's why our swamp count is a little lower for this mono black deck, because we loaded it with all of these lands that leave and replace themselves with a swamp. So every single one of these getting cracked is going to trigger Super Shredder, and it's going to be within your control to do it instead of relying on your opponents having a board state. So Vibrant Cityscape, you can sack a land to go find a swamp. Same with Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds, which is on the next slide, I believe. Riveteer's Overlook lets you go and sack and get a swamp. Promising Vein lets you sack and get a swamp. Shire Terrace lets you sack and get a swamp. Demolition Field's really good because it blows up a non-basic land, and then you and that person get to go and find a basic land. Maestro's Theater lets you go get a swamp. Obscure Storefront lets you get a swamp. Myriad Landscape lets you get 2. And then Ghost Quarter, you can sack it to destroy a land, and that controller gets to find a basic. So Ghost Quarter still, you got to think with these ones that destroy lands, you're getting 2 triggers off of Super Shredder. So Ghost Quarter, even though you're not getting the replacement, you're still getting 2 counters. And then, yeah, as promised, there's Evolving Wilds. You can replace it to go get a swamp. Field of Ruins, similar to Demolition Field, except it lets everybody go find a basic. And then Escape Tunnel, you can sack to go find a basic land as well. And then a decent amount of death triggers built into the deck because we are going to be doing a lot of sacrificing. So anytime you're sacking, these things are going to trigger. So Pitiless Plunderer, anytime you lose a creature, you're going to get a treasure. Pawn of Ulamog, anytime you lose a creature, you're going to get a Eldrazi spawn that you can replace it with for mana. Blood Artist is letting you target a player to have them lose life and gain a life anytime a creature goes away. Massacre Worm is a little baby board wipe, giving everybody -2 until the end of turn. And then whenever a creature an opponent controlled dies, they lose 2 life, so that's going to get out of hand. And then we're running these 2 enchantments that get added value, so anytime you're losing a creature, everybody's going to have to sack another one. So it's not just that like a Plaguecrafter coming in would trigger once, it's going to actually trigger twice because you're losing the Plaguecrafter with these enchantments, Dictate of Erebos and Grave Pact. So anytime a creature you control is put into the graveyard, each other player is sacrificing. So this is getting double value and just making Super Shredder even more powerful. And then we're running a black market as well because anytime a creature dies, it gets charge counters, and then you get black mana equal to those charge counters. And then we've got a decent amount of recursion built into the deck as well. So running a Victimize, which lets you choose 2 target creatures and trade them for one that you have. 9 Lives Familiar keeps coming back on its own because it has 9 lives. So this is great sack fodder, and it's repeatable. Timeline Kohler, you can keep casting it for its warp cost from the graveyard for a single black and 2 life, which is really broken as well. Neither Trader is saying that whenever another creature is put into the graveyard, you can pay a black to bring him back. Sheoldred Whispering Run is repeatable sacking for your opponents at their upkeep and repeatable recursion for you at yours. Rise of the Dark Realms is letting you bring back everything. Grave Betrayal is super good. Anytime they're losing a creature, it comes back on your side as a zombie with a counter. And then Reassembling Skeleton, you can pay 2 mana into to bring him back to the battlefield. And Bloodghast is coming back on his own with a landfall ability. And then I thought it was important also to protect Shredder. So this deck is going to be a pretty big threat at the table, and you want to make sure that all this work you're doing to keep the board clear and beef up Super Shredder isn't wasted. So we're running a decent amount of protection in the deck specifically for Super Shredder. So Undying Malice would protect him if he was going to die. He comes back with a counter on him. Fiend Death, same thing. If he's going to die, he comes back with a counter on him. We're running a Swiftfoot Boots because we want to be able to target him with these save abilities, so this gives him hexproof. Tyrite Sanctum, if you pay the 6 mana into it over 2 turns, he becomes a god and then he's indestructible. Armor of Shadows is protecting him, giving him indestructible for the turn. Kaya's Ghost Form basically sacks the enchantment to save him. Not Dead After All lets him come back with a counter with a Wicked Roll attached to him, which gives him a +1 if he dies. And then Ashnod's Intervention is giving him the ability to come back to your hand instead of dying. So really strong, decent amount of protection for Shredder here. And then other good stuff for Shredder as well. So we want to make sure that he's able to get through with all of this damage that he's going to have. So we're running Trailblazer's Boots and Rogue's Passage to have him get through. No Mercy is protecting us from the crackback. So if they're going to hit us, even when we have no blocks, they're going to lose all of those creatures, which is then going to trigger Super Shredder's ability again. And then we're running these 2 cards, Dying Wish and Rite of Consumption. So they require you to ultimately sacrifice Super Shredder, but depending on how big he is, people probably aren't going to want that to happen, because when he dies, you're going to gain life equal to his power. And with Dying Wish, they're going to lose the life. Rite of Consumption does the same thing. So yeah, either of these, if Super Shredder's like, let's say at 20 counters and you can't get through for combat, you can play either of these and you're going to be dealing like 20 damage to them and gaining 20 life. And then you can couple this with the spells on the previous slide to save him and save him from dying so that he still comes back. Just so broken. And then decent amount of draw in the deck, so we're running a War Room, which lets you draw at the cost of 3 mana and a life. Phyrexian Arena is letting you draw at your upkeep. Village Rites is letting you draw 2 by sacking a creature. Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood let you draw at the cost of 2 life. Morbid Opportunist is letting you draw anytime a creature dies once a turn. Read the Bones is letting you scry first and then draw. Grim Haruspex lets you draw whenever a non-token creature you control dies. Endless Atlas lets you draw at the cost of 2 mana, and then Deadly Dispute wants a sack as well, but you get 2 cards and a treasure. And then even more draw in the deck with Braids Arisen Nightmare. So Braids is really fun in this deck because they're going to have to choose whether or not to give them a counter or to give you a draw. So messed up. Dark Prophecy is really strong here as well. Anytime a creature you control dies, you're going to draw and lose a life. So that's really strong. And then Ayara, First of Lochthwain. Whenever another black creature is entering, she's draining everybody, but she also has built-in draw on her by sacking another creature, which will trigger Super Shredder again. A decent amount of targeted removal and board wipes in the deck as well, so we're running a Withering Torment and a Feed the Swarm to deal with problem enchantments or creatures. Toxic Deluge is letting you pay life to drain everybody for X, where X is the amount of life paid. Sudden Spoiling is something that you can do at instant speed to turn everything into 0/2s, so if someone's going to swing out, all of a sudden their stuff isn't going to do anything. Hellish Rebuke, super strong in black decks. If they connect, they're going to have to, whenever that permanent deals damage to the player who casts Hellish Rebuke, they have to sack it and then they lose 2 life. So really good out of nowhere to win the game. And then Phyrexian Obliterator, super strong here. Anytime a source is dealing damage to it, they have to sack that many permanents. So they don't even get a choice. So they're going to have to really question whether or not they want to attack. And then finally, rounding us out is our mana in the deck. We're running a Soul Ring as our rock. We're running a Jet Medallion and a Darkness Crystal to discount our spells. Darkness Crystal has the added value on when these creatures are dying, you can exile them and then replay them at the cost of 6 mana on your side. Nirkana Revenant and Crypt Gas are doubling up your swamps anytime you tap them. Dark Ritual gets you to Super Shredder more quickly, giving you 3 mana at the cost of 1. And then Solemn is here to fetch us a land, and when he dies, you know, probably to being sacrifice fodder, you're going to draw as well. And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video, and if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.